Hey guys, Jordan here, and I'm in our studios at the Lister Pro's office, and I just finished an interview with real estate photographer Joe Gustafson from New York. Now, he is very impressive as a real estate photographer. He's only 5 years into the business and already making almost $100K a year as a solo real estate photographer. He shared some amazing tips on this interview, and especially for those that are in a small town like he is. He's not even in New York City. He's in a very small town in New York. So I hope you guys get value and enjoy the interview. Hey guys, Jordan here with Real Estate Photography Hub, and today we're interviewing a real estate photographer out of New York, and that is Joe Gustafson. Thank you so much, Joe, for taking time out of your busy day and joining me on this interview. All right, so we're gonna do 5 rapid questions with Joe so you guys can get to know him a little bit better. So Joe, when did you get into real estate photography?
I got into real estate photography 5 years ago.
And are you currently part-time or full-time?
I am currently now full-time real estate photographer.
All right, and what has been your best year so far as a real estate photographer?
My best year to date has been the previous year, 2022, where I grossed just under 100K. And I'm just one-man band, so I don't have any employees or anything. And the year before that was 84,000, so that was quite a jump from 2021. And even in 2020, I hit around 75,000. So I've grown pretty significantly year to year as I build up my clientele and get my name out there.
And how long did it take you to transition from part-time to a full-time career?
Going from part-time, because obviously I didn't get enough listings to go full-time, but it took only about, I think my 3rd year in business is where I was like, okay, I'm actually doing this full-time with 3 to 4 listings, 5 days a week. So that's when I consider full-time. It took about 3 years of just, grinding away. So.
And you're making good money. How many repeat customers do you currently have to make that happen?
Honestly, it's not as much as you would think you need, but because I have a handful of clients, say 5 to 10, that use me for every single one of their listings, and they do video package with me. So, I'm making between $600, $800, $1,200 for one listing. And then I have other clients that only use me for the high-end listings. And honestly, if you were to look at all the realtors, the number is somewhere 50, 60, 70 different realtors that use me at any given time.
Awesome. So you can make a great living with not necessarily a massive amount of customers, which is what makes real estate photography awesome, as long as you have the right contacts, right?
That's absolutely true. I mean, you want to make sure that you are known in your area as the real estate photographer guy. You don't want to come across as somebody who does a little bit of everything. And I think that's what's helping me in my area, is because I'm not the only guy that does it, but everybody knows me as a real estate photographer first. And the other thing that is going to help you out in this business is just making sure you're available as much as possible and being reliable and getting your photos back to the realtor as fast as you possibly can, consistently.
Right.
That's huge. Because
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
want their photos yesterday, if you
Yeah, managing a great
goes.
customer experience is definitely the way to keep and
Yes.
grow your business, because if your business is anything like ours, over 50% of new clients come from referrals from your existing client base because of that customer experience.
That is 100% true. I don't really do any advertising, and I really don't like the whole advertising. Like, hey, if you're a realtor, come check out my work. What I do is that subtle advertisement where I will put like maybe a before picture on Facebook with me doing a flash pop, or like how I lit this, and then the final product with my website link in the post. And so I've grown my Facebook page up to like 1,200 followers. And so because of that, I get referrals left and right. If a realtor sells a home to somebody who owns or they're turning it into an Airbnb, they're going to ask their realtor, hey, do you know anybody that takes good photos for my Airbnb? And of course, they're going to refer, most of the times you're going to get that job because you either took the listing photos for them, or they've just heard about you because you're putting yourself out there all the time.
All right, Joe. So when you started, what activities did you do to get customers?
One of my previous clients from my personal training business was a realtor. So that was how I got my foot in the door that way. But also, you can reach out to your local real estate agencies and ask them if you can come and do like a demo day. A lot of times they'll have, staff meetings on, say, a Wednesday morning, and they can invite different people in. And so I contacted this local real estate agency and said, hey, I'm a real estate photographer in the area. Do you mind if I come and just talk about what I offer and, the different services that I can offer your realtors? And so they got me in the door that way. And I actually picked up 2 or 3 clients that day just from that meeting. And then also go down to your local board of realtors and talk to them, because they'll do agent days and different events for their agents, maybe once a year, twice a year, where you can, pay them $100 or whatever and set up a table, and all these different realtors from different agencies are going to be coming through. They can stop and talk to you, but the biggest thing is to, obviously, you want to be practicing all the time and having work to show, even if it's your own house or a buddy's house. Just start getting your work out there. Legitimize yourself by creating a business name, creating a legitimate Facebook page, and start pushing your work out there. Not even like pushing the fact that you are a real estate photographer, but just showing the people out there that you can do this. And if you think about it, everybody probably knows at least 1 or 2 realtors in their area. I mean, there's so many realtors. You're going to be able to just reach out to them and say, hey, next time you got a really, nice, high-end listing, you mind if I come shoot it? I'll give you a deal if it's my first one, or however you need to work it to get your foot in the door. But then it'll just start, as long as you're consistent, there's no reason why you just can't grow and grow and grow. Because like you said, Jordan, I mean, I would even guess like 95% of my business now comes from referrals. Like mm-hmm. So everybody probably knows where Buffalo, New York is. I'm south of Buffalo, 2 hours. There's a company out of Pittsburgh that uses me to go all the way to Buffalo, West Seneca area, because of another realtor in my area that I did work for, that she knew somebody. And so, I mean, your opportunity for growth from like the whole referral side of things is just, it's the ceiling. There's no ceiling to that.
Right. So talk to us a little bit about the struggles, because we all experience it, right? You're brand new. Maybe you have limited amount of customers. How did you get through the struggles, and what struggles did you experience as you were trying to grow it to a full-time career?
Honestly, well, the struggle, it wasn't so much a struggle, I would say. It was just, you have to be patient. Obviously, you're not going to have every single realtor. You're not going to all of a sudden be given 50 realtors. You have to prove yourself. So I guess it wasn't, and again, I guess the struggle would come with shooting a house that maybe presented itself with a unique challenge that you weren't already familiar with. For example, a humongous high-end log home. Okay, we all know that dark interiors, wood ceilings are just, if you're not used to it, it's nerve-wracking, as opposed to white walls, white ceiling, white furniture, everything, one flash pop and you got it done. So I guess making sure that you are practicing with different types and styles of photography, so you are prepared. Because here's the thing, if you get into one of these high-end homes and a realtor gives you a chance and you fail at that, chances are you're never going to get that realtor to call you back. So I can't stress, be patient, make sure you're practicing all the time. Like I literally had, when I first started out, I had my camera in my hand all day, every day, watching YouTube, subscribing to all these YouTubers out there that are throwing out tutorials and just learning as much as you possibly can. But it's going to take time. You're just going to have to keep working at it. And eventually, if you're consistent, you will grow. There's no reason why you shouldn't grow, because that's the one thing that even if you think your area is saturated, the one area where it might not be saturated is somebody who has determination and drive and a willingness to succeed. There's people that are going to give up in this business. That's why everybody that gets a camera decides to do family portraits because it's, that's just what everybody runs to. Not a whole lot of people are going to risk or want to go through the struggles of being a full-time real estate photographer, because it does take a lot of work. It does take effort. It does take networking. I just tell people all the time, it's just a different type of photography that just takes that extra knowledge, I guess you could say, that, once you have it, you have it. But it's just, you have to have patience, and the referrals will come as long as you're consistent.
And on that same topic, what's the thing that these real estate agents are transitioning to you for? What is setting you apart from your competition in your area?
Well, I guess what's going to set you apart from everybody else is understanding lighting, and not only how your images look, because let's be honest, if there's somebody else out there that can produce about the same amount of quality as you, the other thing that's going to set you apart is making sure you're on time. You're always available, ready. Like if my phone rings in the next hour, I'm gone. I'm going to go out and get the listing, and I'll come back and I'll deliver the photos within a couple hours. So, and the other thing is just your professionalism. You're respectful of the homeowner. You're respectful when, if another realtor is gossiping about another realtor, you keep your mouth shut and just, you know what I'm saying? You don't fall into the traps of gossip, for example, because it does happen. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely the customer experience, just making
absolutely.
Sure. And, exceeding expectations is one thing that I got out of what you said, because, you might say, oh, we turn around photos in 24 hours, for example. That's probably the standard in real estate photography. Oh, within a day. Sure. You're shooting and then coming back, editing as quickly as possible to deliver as quickly as possible. So, yep. It's almost like the Amazon package you order. Oh, it's supposed to come on Sunday, but it's coming on Friday now. Like, now you remember that experience, right?
Yeah. I mean, I make that my priority is I get the photos out the same day. I mean, there's a very, there's an exception to the rule, like where if I had 4 shoots that day and 2 of them are full video edits, then might have to go into the morning of the next day. But I do that also for myself because I don't want to be backlogged.
Exactly.
When you're rocking and rolling in the busy season, you have 3-4 shoots a day. And if people don't realize this, I'm just a one-man band. I don't have any other employees. I do it all. I edit everything. I edit my own stuff. So I have to be efficient. I'll bring my laptop sometimes, and if I have an hour or 2 in between listings, I'll sit in my car and I'll edit the photos and I'll send them to them right then. They're like blown away, like, holy cow, you got my photos already? You were only here like a couple hours ago. So, yeah. And again, you will set yourself apart if you do that, and they will appreciate that, because a lot of times where I don't know if this is a national thing, but as soon as that seller signs, they have 24 hours to get that house on the market. And so they need their photos. I mean, you can't, you're just not going to succeed in this business if you're taking 2 or 3 days to get the photos back, at least not where I'm at.
Right. I don't know there's definitely different rules to different states, and like what's acceptable and what you can do. Like here, you can't post a listing without having a front picture of the listing. There's always like different things.
Correct.
State to state. But, I want to re-emphasize the customer experience, because I think real estate photographers might think, oh, it's about how I'm shooting, the gear I'm using, like the methods, the this, the that. I will guarantee you 100% that what's going to hinge on your business success is the experience, right? And exactly what you're explaining to me was honestly the same mindset that I took when I started my business. I'm like putting myself, it's like a mindset you have to be in, like deliver fast, like if you put off editing your photos to the next day, then that's going to impact your next day's shoots. It's going to now you're unfocused when customers call you. So I can definitely relate, because I was up 2, 3 a.m. sometimes to get back up at 7 a.m. to go out and shoot, because I know I needed to finish those jobs so that I can move on to the next day, know that I took care of it. And the one thing, For me, at least, I'll just share one thing. The one thing that I did not care at all about was the billing, which I should have cared a little bit more because I would batch it out every couple weeks because I don't care about the money. All I cared about was the customer experience, and that's all I cared about.
Yeah, let me talk on that real quick. So the other thing that is going to make the realtors love you is them to have confidence in you. There are more than half of my listings are with the realtor contacting me and saying, hey, I'm not going to be able to be there. I have a meeting, but the homeowner will be there. So them having the trust for you to go to the house by yourself without them feeling like they have to babysit you is going to be huge. So, and then the other thing too is the billing side of it. I accept all forms of payment, but what I do is I kick them over. I use Wave. I'm not like affiliated with them or whatever, but
sure.
Wave is just a nice invoice app that I found that works wonderfully. As soon as I kick the photos over, I kick the invoice right over with them, and they can pay right through the invoice. And at the end of the year, I send them a statement with all their the amount
like
that they spent with me.
Yeah.
On one, and they, they appreciate that because every year I get the realtors that say, hey, can you send me over the amount that,
right.
a billing statement for me because they're doing their taxes, It's just that convenience part of it is going to be so huge because if they have to, if the app is too confusing or you only accept a certain payment and they don't have a PayPal account and it's just annoying to them, it's just going to be, they're not going to look forward to paying you, number one, but you want to make it as easy as possible for them to pay you so you get paid.
Right. And if I was starting a real estate photography business today, obviously we currently use QuickBooks, but I would start with Wave because I actually use it for certain things and it's feature rich and it has a bunch of features, it has a lot of things.
The invoice looks super professional. You can have your logo on it and it just looks really clean and high end. That's why I like it.
All right, Joe, so you talked about a Wave, but what other business, like for mileage tracking, accounting, what other systems do you use in your business?
All right, so as far as the business side of it goes, I use it's called the self-employed QuickBooks app, in which super convenient. You're able to link your bank account to that app, and so every time all your income can get funneled, no matter what payment streams come in from PayPal or Venmo or whatever, can go right into your main business account, which I recommend getting a business. You have to get a business checking account, especially if you want to set up, like I'm set up as an S Corp, so it just helps with taxes. And then the other nice convenient thing about the self-employed QuickBooks app is your mileage tracking. You are definitely going to want to be tracking mileage. And here's a funny story, because this year, for some reason, my what is it called on your phone that tracks your mileage?
The GPS.
What is it called?
Mile IQ. No, your GPS. Your GPS.
Yeah, my GPS got turned off for some reason. Well, you know what's a really cool feature? Every time I contact a realtor, or they contact me, I ask for the address and I put that address into my Google Calendar. So when I'm scheduling things out, I see from 9 a.m. I can just click on my Google Calendar, open up that, and click on the address, and it opens up my Google Maps, and I'm off to the shoot. Well, the cool thing about the Google Maps is, and I don't know how to go into it right now, I don't have time to explain this.
Oh, I know where you're going with this. The history.
The Google Maps, you can look at your entire mileage, and it is tracked. As long as you're using your Google Maps to go to your listings, it'll keep track of your mileage, whether or not your GPS is turned off or not, which it would have to be on if you're using your map. So I actually prefer that, because I thought, here I'm going to have to try to figure out how much mileage because my app wasn't turned on,
Right. So, oh my gosh, so tedious. Yeah,
it is. Mileage is annoying, but you better do it, and you better have some sort of record of it, just in case you ever get audited. They're going to want to see a log of that. And now it's just, they could just look at my phone. You can see everywhere I went.
So what's the advantage in, why is it important to track mileage as a real estate photographer?
Well, because you're going to be driving a lot, and I think the government gives us 55 cents a mile? So that's a humongous deduction.
Yeah, it was
You
even
know, that
higher than
is
that.
one
Yeah.
of my biggest deductions at the end of the year is mileage. So every little bit helps. If they're going to give you 55 cents a mile as a deduction, then take it.
Yeah,
That's my
absolutely.
advice.
It really reduces your taxable income significantly. And when I started, that definitely was almost literally, because you drive so much, that was the biggest line item from a expense deduction. So make sure you're tracking
Yep.
your mileage.
Yep. Because well, I have all the gear I need now, said no photographer ever, but there will come a day when you don't need to really buy anything else, you know, I mean, batteries and things like that. But your first year, you're going to have the most expenses, most likely. But what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought again.
Well, you're probably saying that you know, especially at the beginning, just saving as much revenue as possible, you know, or
Yeah.
you know, if you're tracking your mileage and reducing your expenses, that just gives you more the ability to reinvest your profit back into your business and buy that equipment and stuff that you might need to invest in initially. I don't know if that's where you were going, but that's what I was thinking.
And what I was going to say too is what I didn't realize when I first started is I think I was just using my social security number as my, I wasn't even like a sole proprietor. I just said, hey, I made this much money and I got taxed pretty hard. So that's when I started making, I think they recommend like if you're making over 50,000 a year that it would definitely benefit you to be an S Corp. And the reason why is because I am now an employee of my company and I can say that, okay, I'm going to pay myself 20,000 a year. And of course you then have to figure it out with your accountant, how much of that every quarter you're going to pay in. But now instead of getting taxed on the full $100,000, I'm only taxed on the 20,000, and it's not wrong to do that. It's just because I told my accountant, well, I can't live on 20,000. How is this going to work? Well, you're taxed differently on your dividends if you have to tap into that.
Right.
So that's really what it is. I'm tapping into, my dividends.
Right.
So
it's
to
like
speak,
it's a distribution.
And so these things, I'm saying this now because it saved me my last year. I would have had to pay in $7,500, and I only had to pay in like a couple thousand So making sure that you are talking with an accountant and trying to guesstimate what's the best route to go, depending on how much you're making, and those kind of things are going to be huge.
But especially when you're starting out, that's huge. Talk about that extra $5,000. You can literally buy a computer or a gimbal or whatever you're awaiting that equipment to buy, because the first few years that's just buying gear. Now I got gear coming out of my ears and I'm over gear. Sure. I'm over it. All right, we know that gear is important, but what do you need when you're starting? Is an iPhone sufficient? Do you need a mirrorless camera? Do you need 5,000? I mean, if you go on YouTube, you're going to see the most expensive, fanciest cameras, but what do you need, or what do you recommend, Joe, for beginner real estate photographers?
Yeah, you're going to want to go above an iPhone because your realtors all have iPhones, so you need to set yourself apart. But no, you don't need the $5,500 Sony A7S III. I'm actually shooting now, or I was shooting the last 3 years on an Olympus EM1 Mark II. I know that's a mouthful, but that's a Micro Four Thirds camera. Brand new, right now, actually used, brand new, it doesn't matter, on eBay, $500-600. And I could get into a whole spiel on why I switched from full frame to Micro Four Thirds. That's a whole nother, sitcom.
Do you still shoot Micro Four Thirds? What do you shoot?
Do.
What do you shoot? Panasonic?
I'm actually, this podcast is being filmed on the GH5 Mark II, and it is my new favorite camera. It was the EM1 Mark II, because here's why. Micro Four Thirds is that 2x crop. So is your aperture. So I can shoot at 2.8, which is the same as 5.6, but it's the same exposure settings as being at f2.8 on a full frame. So everything's in focus at like 2.8.
Got it.
And for video, the stabilization, if you've never shot on Micro Four Thirds, like I just literally did a gear review on this, is like my GH5 Mark II, I can hand hold that and walk around, not in a house. I wouldn't do it for a listing shoot, but if I'm shooting a wedding or something, I never use a gimbal anymore. The stabilization is phenomenal. And the other issue I was running into with full frame is if my shutter speed got too low, you can get shutter shock, is where when your shutter opens and closes, it actually causes a vibration and makes your image blurry. Well, Olympus put in a shutter shock reducing type of thing, but it doesn't matter. The stabilization in that camera is so amazing that I can hand hold a 2-second shutter and it's not blurry. So if I'm running around doing outside photos and I have to go into like a barn or something and my tripod's way over in the house, I don't care. I can just roll that shutter down, maybe bump the ISO a little bit and hand hold the shot, and it looks amazing. So, and again, the price. I mean, if I had to start I started out with the A7 III, spent $30,000 on gear, turned around and sold it all, and then
you actually did? No, this is true. You bought the A7 III and spent all this money and then switched to the Micro Four Thirds?
And I got rid of it. I absolutely did. When it got into wedding films, I saw a video on the GH5, the original GH5, and I'm like, I'm never going to Micro Four Thirds, because when I got into this, I'm like, full frame or nothing, I want that bokeh. And then real estate photography is like, no, you don't care about bokeh with real estate photography.
Right.
So, and then when I got the GH5 in my hand, I'm like, holy cow, you can't explain how amazing it is, the stabilization. Like, you can handhold it like you're on a tripod, and it's just, because I'm not talking about the A7S III, I'm talking about the original A7 III.
Yeah.
Which is still today a beautiful camera. I mean, it's still amazing. If you're a full frame junkie and you're new at this and you want to go full frame, yeah, have at it. But I'm telling you, look into Micro Four Thirds for real estate. To me, there's no better setup, because like the GH5 Mark II that I'm filming this on right now, it's both my video and my photography camera now. So before I was switching cameras, doing one for video and one for photos, and it's just, you want to have a backup eventually of everything.
Right.
Yeah. Last thing you need to do is be on a shoot and something happen or break, and now you're out of luck. But if you have a spare camera, you can keep rolling.
So I guess we can just say the moral of the story is you don't need to invest in super expensive gear. I think on YouTube they talk a lot about full frame, how it's superior. Just look how tiny an iPhone sensor is and how good it is, for how small of a sensor it is. So the newer technology and like the Micro Four Thirds, I will say when it comes to gear, when I started, there was a big difference between Canon and Sony when I switched, I think I had the, the Canon 5D Mark III. And then I switched to the A7R. I think that's what it was at the time. The information in the raw image was night and day. Like, Sony was crazy details in the shadows and the highlights. Canon was like, it was really grainy and muddy looking. So with real estate photography, using a lot of dynamic range. But that's back in 2013. I'm talking about now, 2023. Most camera manufacturers have really mastered that dynamic range. So in those raw images, they're trying to push the envelopes with these, how much information. But my goodness, you can get a ton of information in almost any camera these days.
Yeah, and I guess that would be the only argument to not being a Micro Four Thirds, is then you losing that dynamic range per se. Now, if you are shooting HDR, full frame would give you more dynamic range and be able to, pull those shadows or lift those shadows without as much noise. But again, we're talking raw images. Micro Four Thirds, if you go back, if somebody wants to go on my Facebook page and look at all the images that I've posted in the last 2 years, it's all done with Olympus EM1 Mark II. And we're lighting everything anyway. If you're going to get into the flambient method, you're lighting everything anyway. So
then you're not digging so much.
The dynamic range doesn't even matter at that point. So it just comes down to personal preference. Don't get so over the top of like obsessed with gear or anything. Like every time they release a new camera, it's just a little bit better maybe than the other one. Is it going to have it? Like if somebody put two images together from my EM1 Mark II and then a high end, $6,000 Canon R6, you're not going to know the difference. Nobody's going to know the difference. And it comes down to just, are you lighting it good enough? Does it look professional? That's all the realtor cares. They want to sell the house. They're not over analyzing your images. as long as it's looking really high end, they're going to be happy with it.
Yeah.
That doesn't say sell yourself short either.
Right.
But, I mean, we obsess over it more than anybody else does.
Yeah, this is the moral of the story. How you get to that end result doesn't matter. It's up to you. You can shoot with this or that camera. You can process it. As long as that end result that your customer's getting is what they expect or exceeds their expectations, the method you choose, the camera, the settings, the lighting, the blah, 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 you know, as long as you get to this is what matters the most. The customer, what the customer wants.
Yeah, and I will say this too: if you are looking to start and grow your real estate photography business, don't be afraid to start branching out and do other genres of photography. But you do want to make yourself known as that real estate photographer, because you're also going to want to learn how to do corporate headshots. I go to events sometimes where I'm shooting. You know, it's a realtor event, but I am shooting like 30 to 50 headshots within an hour time, and you make good money doing that. So in order to have another feather in your cap or another, you know, tool in your bag is to be able to do, you know, the corporate headshots and family photos, because you're going to have realtors that say, hey, you know, we got a family reunion coming up. Can you come to our house and shoot family photos? I mean, there's going to be other genres of photography that are going to branch out from you being known as a real estate photographer. Because if you're putting high-end real estate photo images out there, like I say, not a lot of photographers know how to do that. They're the, you know, the family photo side. That's, at least that's what my experience is everybody gets a camera and they think they can do family photos, and some are really good at it and others just, that's the first thing they start at. Nobody really starts as a real estate photographer. That's not something you jump into. So it'll set yourself apart, and you'll be able to dabble in other areas of photography to help compensate, you know, for your income.
Yeah, and that's a great great thought process, because a lot of times when you're starting out, you might not have tons and tons of revenue coming in from real estate photography, but if you can bridge the gap and survive with doing headshots, events, you know, different types of photography, maybe your goal is to transition full-time to real estate photography, but that kind of stuff would help bridge the gap. Like, I didn't come from a photography background at all when I started doing real estate photography. I was a licensed real estate agent. So what I did to bridge the gap was I sold houses. Like, I literally I was driving to shoot properties and I was on the phones. But that, I just throw that out there because there's so many different things that you can do to help bridge that gap. If your goal is to become a full-time real estate photographer, you know, you're going to need something else typically when you start, unless you land some magical customer at the very beginning with tons and tons of business that, you know, which likely isn't the path of most real estate photographers. All right, Joe, so talk to us a little, we'll finish up with your YouTube channel. That's actually where I found you. So talk to us a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Yeah, well, I use YouTube for the last 5 years, and it really was just a dumping place for my real estate videos and my family videos and everything else. But now I decided, okay, I'm going to start creating real estate photography tutorials to help the beginner photographer. So not getting really into keeping it super duper simple. I don't go into like these really high complex edits. I want to teach, you know, the flambient method predominantly in the simplest way possible. And I try to make it as, you know, as easy to understand as possible to help somebody that's new. And I'm just releasing a video coming up soon about all the gear I use and why I use it, and, you know, the mistakes I've made. Like I say, spending $30,000 the first year and then turning around and selling it all. And if I could go back and start all over again, this is the gear I would use. But yeah, it's just a channel basically to help the newbie figure this flambient method out so you can get rolling.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you guys on the next one.